Hi guys, it's Bobby, your big gay trucker with LGBTQ plus Truck Driver Network. And today we're going to talk to Ann Bailey. And before we do that, I'm going to give you a little snippet for a few seconds about a little bit about her book and things like that. So show you a little bit and check out the website, check out everything that it shows in the little video. So here we go. Hi guys. So hope you enjoyed that little snippet. But today we're having Wild Hair Day for me and little hair for Anne. So and that's okay. But no, Anne's been a friend of mine for a while and just someone that I've in passing, we've chatted, we've had a little bit of tips and people say stuff about us and they try to cause problems. We've had all kinds of just fun things. But you know what? The cool thing is when you meet certain people and you meet good people, you're able to walk up to them and have a conversation and chat about something and it's resolved and it's put in the past. And when you meet good people like that, you know that those people are friendships and bonds that will last forever through networking and just being together and all being on the right path of being an activist and just being out here and fighting for other people's rights and even the people that can't speak up at this moment. They don't have the bravery, they don't have the courage to, they may be fighting or thinking that they don't want to come out to their families, friends, whatever it may be, whether it's mental health or rape or whatever the issues are, there is people that's out here fighting for you. And Anne's one of those people that, I always see out here fighting for rights and just people to be themselves and express their individuality and just be who you are, and which is kind of co-lines with me because that's what I like to do too. So I'd like to have Anne just kind of tell us a little bit about herself and what she enjoys in life and things like that for a moment, and then we'll just bounce a couple questions and can just play through it like that. So
excellent, and thanks for having me, Bobby. And I'm just so happy to have you for a friend and get to see you when our paths cross. So just a brief intro to me is in 1994, I got a PhD in English. I've always loved to read, but in the very same year I came out, and there was a lot of transitions in 1 year. I had kids who were 1 and 3 at the time, and I just decided to give it a whirl and see what life held for me and see what I could find out about myself. So I've been a single mom since my kids were 1 and 3. They are now 29 and 31. So it was a while ago. But, and as part of this whole process, instead of getting a job as a professor, which I had sort of originally envisioned, I started work as a car mechanic. And that's partly because the job market for professors is bad, but it's also because, I mean, my coming out was tumultuous. The teenage sort of wild side that I had repressed when I was a teenager, it came out when I emerged. And so I spent about 5 years just having fun. And that
Right.
was not compatible with professional life, but it was fully compatible with being a car mechanic. I had a really good time. I met a lot of people. I went to a lot of bars. It was a great way to spend time. And then, I got a little more serious. I've had a bunch of jobs through my whole life. My kids have always been incredibly important to me and a huge part of my life. One of my kids is pan, and one of my kids is trans non binary. So they grew up in queer worlds and fully embrace and love queer worlds. You've met my youngest.
Uh-huh.
So it's been a great experience being a mom, being a worker. And as a out lesbian, I have had a hard time with employment. So even when I get a job, I often don't keep it. And specifically, I had a tenure track job as an English professor in Gary, Indiana. And I had that for 7 years, and I should have been promoted. I should have been allowed to keep that job. But out of pure anti queer hatred, I was instead fired. And I
Right.
was pretty angry. I was very disappointed that, academia says that it supports queers. And I thought that if I did a good enough job, I would be able to keep working. And I did a great job, but I also did queer research. And so I was not retained. And in the anger about that, and also just fear and poverty, I trained as a trucker. And um, it really helped. It helped me feel like I was going to be able to make it, like there was a path forward, like I could do something meaningful, like I could support myself and my kids. I still had one kid living at home at that time. The other one had moved on, moved out. But it really helped me at a really difficult moment in my life. It helped me feel like I could find community and have friends. And trucking world at that moment, at least, was very accepting of me being queer. And
Right.
that's been true in many of the trucking work settings I've been in. There are a lot of lesbians out there. There's a lot of trans women, there's a lot of gay men. People are used to it. They don't do what happened to me when I was a professor where they say they're accepting and then they fire you. They don't do
Right.
that. Like there are plenty of people who don't say they're accepting and they say mean stuff. But then people who say they're accepting, they're just fine. And they don't care. And
Yeah,
that
for the general rule, that's pretty much what happens.
mm,
Sometimes though, I do feel, you know, and I'm glad you brought up the whole trucking because people are probably like, well, how does she relate to trucking? So,
yeah.
there's a whole trucking tie when it comes to
Mm,
Anne. She
mm,
has a huge love for truckers and the industry. And then even before she wrote SemiQueer, she had another book, which I believe was your father's. Was it your father's industry that your father
mm.
was in? Well,
No,
how did that happen?
how that happened is my first book is about gay, lesbian, and transgender steelworkers. And that's
Right.
just because I lived in Gary, Indiana, where the steel mills were. And not my father, but a lovely historian named Jimbo Lane, who worked at my college, suggested to me that I do oral histories of gay and lesbian steelworkers because he he had always lived in Gary and he was a historian and he felt that it was an untold story. And I didn't really know anything about steel mills, though I love them. I think they're beautiful. I think they're sort of cool and mysterious, and I wanted to know more about them. But what really happened is I met two or three of the steelworkers, and they changed my life. They were amazing, amazing storytellers, funny people, like survivors like you wouldn't believe. Just amazing, awesome people. So that made me want to meet more. So then I spent about 3 years tracking down gay, lesbian, and transgender steelworkers and trying to get them to talk to me, trying to get them to trust me, hearing their stories, writing down their stories, trying to learn more about it. And publishing that book is what got me fired from my professional job, because that's not the kind of research that people are supposed to do. So, fine. It was a important book to write.
But if not having people like you that are willing to put their job in jeopardy to do these type of things, these stories would never be told. Just like in trucking, the stories would not be told. So between the two books, which do you think that they're very relatable in the stories that you've seen in the background when it comes to trying to find? I know you had a hard time even with SemiQueer trying to find men. There was not very few men that would come forward and and talk to you as well that were actively in the industry still, because a fear of backlash of jobs and things like that. So do you think that there was a lot of similarities between the iron workers and the truckers when you really looked at it, like looking back now?
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. And one of the things that's worth saying there is it's easier for me to find lesbians and trans women than it is for me to find gay men and trans men because of who I am. And that's always true with research, but sometimes people don't admit it, right? So if I'm hanging out at a bar and I'm trying to meet people, the lesbians and trans women are going to want to meet me. That's just the way it is. This is because I think that lesbians and trans women are hot as hot. So I like to hang out with them, and they can tell that, and we have great conversations. Gay men, I often think, are lovely and funny and wonderful, but it's clear that there's no sexual chemistry. That's obvious. So they don't get into conversations with me. And sometimes they kind of avoid me because they think that I don't get it. And I think that any researcher has bias based on who they are. And what I just try to do is admit that and say, I'm not trying to research everybody. One thing that I think about trucking is there are huge immigrant communities, right? There are tons of Punjabis, tons of Sikhs. None of those people would talk to me. I talked to gay men, but not a lot of them. I tried to talk to every Sikh I met. And they were all like, yeah, lady, I don't know what you want, but I am busy and I don't feel comfortable. So we just need a researcher who is of that community, right?
Right. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that talk, and it's like Jess. You've met Jess when you was at the event, but they at Matt's. But a lot of people like Jess, when he came, he was 9 months ago. He was very uninformed about the industry and different things like that. Even though he had been a driver for 6 years, he was one of these people that went to work every day and just didn't care about being openly gay, which is a huge portion of our community. They keep it. And I hate to say this, but they're gay when they're home, and when they're on the road, it's not a part. They don't make it a part of because they're so afraid of their jobs or what other people will think and all of that. So he has been very vocal a lot of the time on things, and he has said well, why is there no other people in books? Why is there no? I said, Jess, before me, I was pretty much, me and Ricky were the first gay openly couple to really start talking, doing magazine articles and things like that, and it's hard to find that. You don't find a bunch of other people that openly are talking about things. And I don't know why not, because I'm more like you. I'm very happy with who I am. I'm very content with my home life, and I don't change whether I'm from my job to the house to no matter who I'm hanging out with in a circle of friends or anybody, you're going to get the same crazy, witty, gay, drag queen / whatever, person that I am. And I think that for some people, being so comfortable makes them uncomfortable, because if you are so comfortable with who you are. But I just, through what we're doing and trying to talk, me and you, talking about our lives, and even you talking about that some people don't want to talk to you because, they're gay men or they don't feel comfortable. I think that's so sad. Like, it's like the what is the old stereotype that they say, lesbians and gay men just don't get along. They can't be friends.
Yeah.
They say that, and
Yeah.
I've heard that a million times. But I have tons of lesbian friends, so it's like I don't know. It's weird, but we get into those stereotypes. But I would love to see. It's something I would love to see. I would love to see at Matt's. Um, the Indian drivers, and I would love to see a booth for everybody. All when I say all drivers means all, I really feel that. I feel that completely within me. That's my goal, is getting, but it's so hard with our organization even to get African American drivers. It is hard to get Indian drivers. It's hard to get any, and I've met many gay drivers out there of all different ethnic backgrounds, but getting them to be vocal and be a part it's very hard. It's very hard. I wish there was a more diverse group, but it's just, and I know they're there. They're there, but just to get them to talk or get them to come and be interviewed like this, it's very hard.
Yeah. And that's partly because there's this academic concept called intersectionality. And what that means is everybody's has a bunch of different parts of their identity, and they're often in tension with each other. So it's not just like some people talk about intersectionality and they're just like, oh, I'm this and this and this and this. Isn't it nice? It's a lovely little soup. That's not how people experience identity. People experience it as like pulling them in different directions. So let's say you are Punjabi and a trucker and gay. When you do gay things, when you're in gay settings, when you come to gay community, it feels like other parts of you are being denied. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is, right? So and one way to think of this mentally is think about elections. Would you vote for a gay person or a Punjabi person? You shouldn't have to choose, but that's not how life is laid out, right? So people kind of have to make decisions about which part of their identity is most important at this moment. And if you're a trucker of color, that's going to be really important to you at this particular moment. And maybe just feel more important than being a sexually or genderly diverse trucker. And, but it would be great if that didn't happen, but we also have to be realistic about how people are experiencing their identities. And frequently what happens is being a trucker is more important than any of those things.
Right.
So, trying to say like
providing food on the table for your families and taking care, in my situation, a lot of people ask me, how do I keep my job and doing all the stuff that I do? And I'm like, well, I'm very fortunate to work for companies and people that let me. I know that it sounds silly to say that they let me, but that's what it is. They let me be my authentic self. But it's taken 6 years, and I have probably worked at 20 different companies to find the last 3 years our home base of being where we're at. Because it takes a minute to find that, and some people never find their happy spot in trucking. But we've been fortunate enough to find a place that keeps us in a brand new truck, and an awesome truck at that, and and then and pays us well, but then also supports me going to Pride events, and supports me being a part of the community, and lets me wrap the truck and do different things with it, and lets me be visible. And so when you find that, I'm not saying it's perfect, but no job is perfect, no life is perfect, but when you find that, it's pretty damn close to perfect. So we've just stayed in that spot for a little bit because we're able to be our authentic self.
Yeah.
And that's but I mean, I know you've done a lot of really amazing things, and I know it may sound weird, but do you regret um, how everything played out with your book and losing your job?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Like meeting the steelworkers and writing about them um,
Hmm.
changed who I am in ways that I would never, ever change. Like, I mean, I'm from a blue collar background and I've had blue collar jobs, but I didn't know how amazing those people were until I met 40 of them and got to know them. Like we became friends. We went on cross country trips together. They really taught me about surviving. And um, part of me would have felt pretty weird if I had used that experience to move ahead in my career.
Right.
Like I would have done it, but I would have felt strange about that because they had such a hard life and they were frequently fired for being gay. Um, One guy that I met named Bill Tortat, and I can use his real name right now because he's died. But he worked at a nail plant, and he was married to a woman. They had two kids, and then at some point he came out. He met this guy. Like when he talked about falling in love, it just he lit up. He was an amazing person, and they moved in together. He started to embrace who he was, and his ex-wife told the plant, and he was
Wow.
fired that day. And it's legal
Right.
in many states. At that point it was legal to fire people. Like the pink slip says, you're gay. Like there wasn't any hiding. And how he survived, like what he did. And steel workers make a lot of money, and
Right.
the only job he could get after that was being a cashier at Pier 1. And he just talked about like being able to be out at work and how good that felt.
Right.
And like in terms of surviving, I mean, I would do anything to have heard his story for 8 hours. I mean, he made me cry, he made me laugh. And that was true of so many of those two workers. And who needs a job when you can have like important people in your life? Like I could get another job, right?
Right.
There are other
Yeah.
jobs. I don't need that one. So yeah, and same with the truckers. Like, I mean, the truckers that are in that book, I see them when they come through St. Louis. I talk to them on the phone all the time. Like, in most cases, we just got to be really close just through the experience of me calling them up and saying, like, hey, I want to meet you. Are you going to spend a 34 somewhere? I'll show up there. We'll hang out. I just want to know, like, what it's like to be a gay or a lesbian or a transgender or a black or whatever kind of trucker. I want to know what your life is like. And, just having those experiences. And, same thing, like, I can always get another job.
Right.
But I can't get another understanding of what being human is. And these people just taught me so much about how to be real, how to like take chances to make life meaningful. I would not change it ever for a second. I love those people and I am so glad that I met them. You just have no idea.
Even
They're amazing.
even our experience. So when me and Anne first met, we were doing something for Uber Freight
Mhm.
uh, in California, and even that experience, we had a lot of fun. We walked through, the district out there. We went to the bridge, and we had all these pictures. Anyway, even that, I remember us the very first night having like what was it? We was at a Chinese restaurant or something on a big table, and we all like that was pretty much the first night of us like sitting there together and all of us getting to know each other. And even that experience, having the photo shoot and doing all the fun things that we did,
Mhm.
I loved it from that moment. I
Mhm.
knew I knew from that moment that I wanted, and me and Kiera stay in contact, and like I'm
Mhm.
contacting pretty much everybody from that group,
Yeah.
and
Ellie?
it's
Yeah, I still talk to Ellie.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just talked to Ellie last week, so it's like we talk, and I love that. And so that's one of the things I want to do is I'm trying to plan with Kings Island Amusement Park. So Kings Island, I used to work for Cedar Fairs, and
Mm.
when I worked for Cedar Fairs, I have a couple of friends still there, and so we're trying to plan something with Kings Island right there in Ohio,
Mhm.
and because it's kind of like a central location for truckers, it's still not even very far for you, it's just a couple
Mhm.
hours away. And I don't want to do something corporate, nothing big. I want to literally just a couple truckers in the parking lot. I don't care if it starts with 5 truckers or 5 trucks, or it goes to 10 trucks. We have great people like Taylor Barker and other people that have said, "I'll come up, I'll bring my stage, whatever to support." But I really want to start something that is old school based.
Mm.
My father was a trucker. He was one of those truckers that knew CB handles. Ricky's dad was a coal trucker, and so it was really, one of those things that he knew. It was the same thing. They were old school, but they knew each other. They had the time to have camaraderie between each other
Yeah.
and laugh and talk. And I love the commercial events like Matt's and the other things that goes on.
Mhm.
I do like it, but I would love to have like a good old family weekend
Mm.
at the amusement park with trucks in the parking lot for the weekend or whatever, and do
Mm.
like a cookout and just something very not so formal, just us being together to get to know who we are as people, individuals,
Yeah.
and share stories. And it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bi, it doesn't, none of that matters really to me. I'm very happy about who I am, but that's one of the goals I have with creating a network in all the organizations, being able to invite Real Women in Trucking and being able to invite Truckers Final Mile and all these different, other nonprofits. And it's
Mhm.
not because I hate that some people even feel that they're in competition with each other. I think
Mm.
that's silly. We're all out for the greater good of drivers and just
Mhm.
people in general.
Yeah.
So, I want to plan stuff like that. I'd love to have you as a part of it and just us getting together. Bring your kids, take the weekend off if you can, and just grab a
Mm.
cheap hotel or whatever, and
Mm.
and you be there. I think that is something that's really, really needed because um, I feel more things in trucking could get done if we had a closer connection between each other.
Relationships. Yeah. Yeah. And bring your kids is crucial. Like, I mean, I had kids before I came out, and it's always been crucial to me in gay community, lesbian community, queer community to be a mom first. Like, I don't go
Right.
to any event where my kids are not welcome ever. And it's been a conflict for me in a bunch of settings. People are like, "Oh, yes, it's gay. We don't want children," and I'm like, "Well, then you don't get me." Like that, and that goes back to an example of intersectionality, right? Like
Right.
I'm not going to go along with anything that is like, no, we don't want kids or we don't want, you know,
Right.
anything. Yeah.
So are we going to have any books maybe in the future? Any more books?
I mean, currently my plan is to write about Starbucks workers.
Okay.
Like one of the things that I became really interested in is why gay and trans people are drawn to certain careers,
Mhm.
how that happens. So, why are there so many gay and trans truckers? This is fascinating to me. And I spent a lot of time in SemiQueer trying to answer that question and coming up with a bunch of answers. But if you're looking at the job that is most dominated by gay and trans people, it's Starbucks baristas, right? Like,
Right.
go
Servers,
to
waiters,
Starbucks.
hostess. There are certain areas that we like to, and we
Mhm.
do very well in.
Mhm. Yeah.
I always was a really good. I worked for Applebee's for a little bit, and I
Mm.
made really good tips as a bartender, and I made really good tips waiting tables, and it
Mhm.
was just a good time for me to show my personality, have
Mhm.
fun, laugh, and joke, and be myself and be free.
Yeah.
And so I can totally. I would instantly I could see me being a barista. I could see me doing that, you know. So I actually have my little coffee bar. That right there is my Baby Yoda coffee bar right there.
All right.
But you know, I could see
Also,
that, and
to go back to your other thing, it's are there others, right? Like, do you want to be the only one that's like you in your job? No, nobody wants that. Any job anywhere, nobody does. Like, you don't want to be the only Black person who works somewhere. You don't want to be the only queer.
right,
You want like some people who are like you, whatever that might be. And so if it's a job where there's started to be a little community, that's going to grow because people notice that and they're like, oh, I could go there. That's accepting of me. So yeah,
yeah.
so that helps.
So so I'm a very old school mindset sometimes. I
Mm,
am, and you know, but I talk to people because I love seeing other people's opinions on things and their views on things because that's what makes my mind think from a different angle, which I'm
mm,
sure that's as a writer you understand that.
yeah.
You know, so like me, I am someone who hates the term queer
Mm,
just because of when I being raised and born, you know, in West Virginia
mm,
and living in that area, it was always a very derogatory term for me.
mm,
People saying queer and faggot and no homo, and you know, and guys putting their butts to the locker when I walked past in high school, and just,
mm,
you know, it was a hurtful time. People tried to egg my car and key my car and put paint on it, and I mean, there was just a lot
mm,
of, and I won't say everyone in West Virginia is that way, but when
mm,
you're out, I was out and I was open at like 15, 16,
mm,
and it's a hard time. Um, it was just a hard time for me in the
yeah,
90s, you know, like being like what, 96, 97,
mm,
you know, and out and open and being in school. And it was just a really hard time for me. So I understand people taking back the power of words and taking that away from others. I understand it. But even to this day, there is moments that, you know, when I hear someone say queer, that
mm,
term that bothers me.
mm.
What do you think about that? I just want your opinion because, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, it's my own little story, but
Yeah. I mean, first I would say it took a ton of guts to be out at that age. Like anyone who is between age 12 and 20 is in a it's just a hard time to be alive. You feel you're trying to get approval from your parents and your teachers. You're trying to figure out how to be an adult. Like it's a very hard time. And to add to that, being out in an unhospitable setting just takes a lot of courage. And so, you know, I just want to notice that you were being really strong to even do that. And in terms of how people feel about particular phrases, I mean, I organize adjunct faculty now. That's what I do for a living. And one of the people that is my workers is a gay man who doesn't like the term queer. So I do not use the word queer if he is listening. Like we should be able to determine what words are used to describe our identity. And if that's a word you don't like, that word should not be used to describe your identity. End of story. Like for me, it's just shorthand, right? Like I don't want to always say gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary. It's just time consuming. And for me,
right.
it's just a short way of saying that. But you know, if there are a lot of people that share with you that queer feels insulting. And I don't have any stake in insulting anybody. I'm happy to use other words.
Yeah, no, that wasn't what I was saying. I just wanted your opinion on it because I know you talk to a lot of people,
Mm,
and you know, some people sometimes don't understand why I have a problem with it.
mm,
And I'm like, well, you know, you didn't live where I grew up, and
mm,
where I grew up and in that area, it just was not a very friendly area to be in. I'm
mm,
not saying everywhere was during that time, but there is certain areas demographically of the country that you can be raised in, and even right now in West Virginia, it's still not the friendliest place to
yeah,
be. You know, and Kentucky, Ohio, there are certain areas of the country that's not like living in New York or Florida or the different areas. I say Florida loosely though, because Florida has been, it's so weird right now. I mean, it's so weird right now in Florida, the whole thing. Because even when we were living there, it was like sometimes I felt like the gayest place on earth because everybody you could openly walk with your holding hands with your partner, going to the beach, going anywhere you go. But then the governor system and all that is that's a whole another show. But I'm just saying, but it's just like sometimes you may live somewhere that it's like just a little bit more open. And being in West Virginia, I can remember literally I tried that. I tried holding hands with one of my very first boyfriends just at a park one day, and we got like rocks thrown at us, and like it was really not a good thing. But it never stopped who I was. I always was the same person I am right now. I haven't changed, but just a few pounds. But I think that it's important. I basically got like even recently I got kind of like attacked by somebody that said, well, you're just older and you're set in your ways and you don't want to change and keep up with gay society. And I don't feel that way. It's just I was raised in a different time where those words were used completely different. And I like that everybody is trying to take the power away from those words of being and putting a different power behind it, which is feeling comfortable in who they are. It's just taken a while for me. It's taken a while, if that makes sense, for me to come around full circle on it. And
religion does matter. I mean, my youngest kid, who's trans non-binary, is a high school teacher in Kentucky, and I say to them every now and then, like they have a really hard time, right? Like the principal gives them crap. The principal makes their job more difficult than it should be. It just turns out to be a really full of struggle. And I say to my kid, like, well, I mean, maybe you should just leave and move to a state where it's easier. But my kid is my kid is awesome. And they're just like, look, I'm the only trans faculty. These students need me. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Here in Bowling Green, we're in Bowling Green, Kentucky now. And everybody has been like, why in the world would I go from like being at the beach or where, and being at Bowling Green, Kentucky? But I will tell you, I was so shocked. I think the big thing is it's a college town. So Western Kentucky University here, and because of it being a college town, I think that makes a big difference. But there's so many LGBTQ people here. They had a very large Pride attendance and show up, and it was really awesome. And they had there's just a sense of community. There is a gay bar a block and a half away that we can walk to, and it's not tucked away in a little back alley somewhere. Like back in the day, all of our gay bars in West Virginia, they were in an alley. You had to enter through the alley. You couldn't even, it was not a storefront on the main front. It was you want to enter the backside for your safety. All the entrances was in the alleys. I know that may sound silly to some people because now gay bars are just totally different. But I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There was a lot of places you would enter in the alley. You didn't enter the front entrance. Usually that was barricaded off. So here I just love that right down the street there's all these Victorian houses and everything, and there's gay pride flags here, gay bunting flags there, trans flags, and I don't know, I think it has to do with just it being a college town, and it has that young youth that is here, and I love the little town. I love where I'm at and what we're doing, and they've been really accepting, believe it or not. When I told them I was going to move the organization from Florida to here, the mayor has come out to meet me. All the city board members, everybody has come out to meet me. Everybody's came to like say hi, brought cookies to the door, and it's very old school for me. You don't hear a lot of that anymore, but I enjoy it. I just enjoy that small community atmosphere. And when you go to Florida, I loved it, but you lost all of that.
Mm.
I never heard the birds chirping. I only heard traffic all the time, and so I didn't hear the small things in life. So when
Yeah.
we found the house, it
Mm.
made a total difference for me,
Mm.
just because I was like, okay, like I can do this,
Mm.
and it's on a path that I take care of my mom and dad, so it's a lot of those struggles that you have as a driver in the community. How do you fit all these things in? It's
Mm.
very very hard, and so we're able to swing through on different routes. I'm able to be here every weekend pretty much to see mom and dad, take care of them at the house. So it just made a huge, in trucking, it's so hard to fit any of that in everyday life. It's regular, it's hard to fit all the things you want to do. Then you add trucking to it and you're on the road all the time. It's very hard. It's hard to keep up with your health. It's hard to
Mhm.
keep up with doctor's appointments. It's hard, and then just a lot of obstacles that you face, and it's
Mm.
not for everybody. I know you went into trucking and
Yeah.
you stayed for a short period of time. And so, like, why, I guess you can tell a little bit about that. Like, why did you exit trucking, I guess?
I drove for 7 months. So anyone in trucking knows there's a lot of turnover. And I am part of that statistics of the turnover. There were parts of the job that I loved. I loved the physical driving. I loved the places that I saw. I loved being out there. I was terrible at the paperwork. So when you get to the customer and you have to pay the lumper fee and you have to call and get the check and get the amount, like I always got it wrong. So you had to like call the carrier and get authorized to pay the lumper fee, and then there were just so many steps, and I always got it wrong. And I have a PhD. Like, I'm not bad at reading, but in terms of sort of the details of the job, I always got them wrong. And so they were always yelling at me, and I hate to be yelled at. I mean, nobody probably likes it, but I just hate when I've done something wrong and they read me the riot act. I hate
Right.
that. So that made me feel a little hostile. And at this point in my life, I had a partner who was disabled and was hospitalized fairly often, and it was always stressful. And I thought that for the first few years of trucking, I'd be able to handle it. She wound up in the hospital, but she wound up in the hospital, and I was out on the road, and I couldn't deal. I just couldn't deal. So I took the truck to my terminal and said, I'm going to leave and go look at my partner. And they put on my DAC that I had abandoned my load, which I considered unfair. I mean, I took it to the terminal. It's not like I left it by the side of the highway. But it is true that they told me I couldn't take time off. And I was like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
So I got fired.
And that happens a lot. That does happen a lot. That story happens a lot with drivers.
Mhm.
It's very. I say it all the time, and it may sound weird, but like trucking has a way really fast to let you know whether you're going to make it or to spit you back out. Like it's
Yep.
just one of the
Yep.
very fast careers, and some people fall in love with it, and they're like, oh no, but I'm sure that you did enjoy some parts of it, like the open road and the time to think and all that type of stuff. That's my favorite part about it is the ever changing, the best office window ever. Like it's
Mhm.
just,
Yeah.
you see all these things, you meet all these amazing people. So
Mhm.
I enjoy that. I don't
Yeah.
know if I have all these people that wants me to come home and do a local job,
Mm.
and I just can't give it up yet.
Mm.
I know that sounds silly, but it's just like love,
Yeah.
I do love the road. There's
Yeah.
something about it that is, I've said it all the time ever since
Mm.
the beginning that when you're on the road is so loud sometimes
Mm.
about your life and everything. It's very therapeutic. It's like going to a session and sitting and talking to someone. You're just there alone and you're driving with the road. And
Mm.
sometimes you just think about friendships and family and all kinds of things. And it's just a very therapeutic thing. But I've always done that, just if I get upset, whatever, I put the top down on the car and music up and away I go on a drive. It's just a way to it's why I was like, I never understand people that doesn't understand like how free it is to own your
Mm.
car and go to
Mm.
get a car and go. It's one of those things. It just always worked for me.
And it also, I mean, and this is something that a lot of people who just drive understand. There's this moment when you're in a car where everything just sort of clicks and the car feels like an extension of you.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're moving, and that feels magnified so much when it's an enormous truck, right? So,
Right.
and it doesn't happen at the very beginning because you're thinking all the time. You're like, wait, should I downshift? What does the tax say? But like for a few months, when that happens, it's so awesome because like it's this huge truck and it has this, rhythm to it, and it just feels like part of you and you're it. And it is just wonderful. Like the adrenaline of that and the sort of just pleasure of sitting in a truck doing that. I mean, still, when I hear that little lever on the shifter do the air, I still
Right.
feel nostalgia for that when it goes like, I'm like,
Every
oh,
time every time the dogs hear that lever and we pop pop them out, the dogs instantly are like, oh, it's time to go out. They jump up and they know. It's so funny. So like, I know that you have really awesome things going on, and a couple of the things going where you are part of the advisory board for. Well, you can tell people about it. So, of what
yeah,
you
I
just
was
have.
selected for the Women in Trucking Advisory Board, which has its first meeting next Wednesday by Zoom, thankfully. So I don't have to get on a plane and go to Washington, D.C. But I mean, oh, look, you get to see my dog. But I
I
certainly
know.
hope that it's an opportunity for me to amplify voices of lesbian and trans women truckers. I mean, I feel like in so much of government thinking about truckers, trans people are not considered. And
Right.
trans people just, there's a lot. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of trans people driving truck. And, that needs
And
to
more and
be
more,
said.
it just keeps growing, and people are finding, um, comfort in it. There's people that I have met. I myself, I was very ignorant to the fact of this before coming into trucking. When I came into trucking, I had this horrible image in my head of what a truck driver should be, which is just, and that's just my own ignorance, but it's just I didn't know. And when you're in it, and when you see a truck fly past you on the highway, you don't think of a gay husband team. You don't think of people being transgender. You don't think of people being trans that are transitioning in the truck and recovering from surgeries and covering themselves up with big hoodies because they're not there yet, and they're having hairline surgeries and having breast augmentation or whatever the surgery or stage they're at. But you would never think of someone doing that in a truck, um, and it happens all all the time. And then you have on top of it, and you have I have another friend that I just met here recently in Tennessee, and he is transitioning from female to male, which is a little less unheard of because I feel that a little bit they're even more private than people who are trans that goes from male to female, because a lot of people who are transitioning to be male really kind of just want to fit in with the good old boys or whatever you want to say. I mean, maybe that's not the right term, but like they do, because like I literally I had asked someone here recently, would you like to be on a show that I have coming up about transitioning and just being transgender and what it's like to be on a truck? And we're pretty much in 2 weeks going to have a whole show where it's going to be 6 people who have all transitioned, and I was trying to have a wider spectrum of male to female and female to male, just because a lot of people don't think about female to male sometimes, and at least I don't feel so. There's not so many cases, so I'm trying to represent everybody as much as possible, which I know you understand. So, but yeah, I've had some problems. And there's only one person that has said that they would come forward. I have a couple of friends, but it's just hard. And then I even have another person that I think you should talk to just for, um, she actually can. She's coming to the show to be on the show, but she's actually going to be like shadowed out.
Mm.
She can't really, but she works in oil fields,
Mm.
and her job's a little different, which that's a whole different area that. But she's trans and working in the oil fields,
Mhm.
and so that is another whole section of trucking. But
Mhm.
it's another
Yeah.
really it's going to be interesting to hear
Mm.
all the different stories at once. Everybody telling
Right.
the answers of all of that, and I just wanted to get people together
Mm.
so that they could. A lot, almost all of them don't know each other, and that's kind
Mm.
of. And so I was like, so they'll have a friends to confide in and
Yeah.
people to network with and all
Mm.
of that. So,
Mhm.
and that's literally
Because
just
the
what I want.
difference is the oil fields, there's stable networks of people, right? Because it's an
Right.
oil field and you come in and out. Whereas it's trucking is such a good job for trans people because it is transitory. So you are
Right.
unlikely to see the same people again. You're on the road all the time, and that gives you all this freedom to, like one of the people that I interviewed said, sometimes I get crap at truck stops or at chippers and receivers. And if people give me crap, I say, give me crap if you want, but say hello to my truck, and gets in and drives away, right? Like being that mobile gives you, it doesn't mean that you're safe because you can still run into trouble at any of those places, but then you leave it. And so that gives you a certain kind of latitude. Whereas in the oil fields, you don't have that at all. You're going to see the same people day after day in the same setting, and it's pretty isolated, and they're not the politest people ever. So
Well,
I can
this
totally
person
see why
actually,
people who work there might be more careful.
yeah, well, this person actually is trans, lives as female,
Mm.
but when going to work, their work actually, I don't give it all away, but their work actually requests that they come as male
Mm. I
still.
wonder if
So
that's legal. Yeah, that would be interesting to know. But the difference, I mean, another difference is it's much easier to pass as trans male than as trans female. I mean, and that's partly just a size issue. Like lots of trans women are just big and tall, and so people clock them easily. Whereas trans men in trucks, it's just much easier to pass, and so that gives people the ability to hide. And trans women often can't hide and often don't want to. There's a lot of pride in trans
right.
identity, and you know
And I
they
love
do
that.
pride, but they
I
don't
do.
want to. Yeah,
I love
completely.
that. I
Yeah.
love the characters that I meet, and I don't mean that in the wrong way, but I mean that in a good way. Like the characters and all the personalities that you meet through just talking and being, open to people. And I've met people just at the fuel pumps. It's
Mhm.
funny, but it's like people have walked up and they're like, I love what you're doing with the Pride truck, and I love what you're doing with all of this, and just being visible and open, take pictures and selfies with people, and it may seem silly or whatever, but those little moments are the most rewarding things. That's why we do what we do. Those little moments is why people are like, well, why would you do this? Why would you put a gay pride logo on the side of your truck? Why would you try? Because you don't know how someone's day is going, but I have literally had people walk up and just thank me for being me, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything any different that I wouldn't do anyway, but you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's just one of those things. They'll thank me for just being me and
Mhm.
being open and honest.
Mhm.
And then I get a hug from a complete stranger. I end up making a friend. I end up getting a selfie, and it's fun. It's just
It
those
is.
things, and that's
Yeah.
what it's about. And that's why I want to create a little bit more of a bond and a network
Yeah.
and a community where people understand. And the other thing that really is so weird, you would not believe how many people, even of our own LGBTQ community,
Mm.
when we went to Louisville and we went to the gay bar, the drag queen went on stage and she was like, thank you so much for being here and being the first group to make history as setting up at mats and all this other stuff. It was amazing. And but you wouldn't believe how many people just didn't even from our own community, didn't even think about or know that there's gay truck drivers or
Right.
LGBT, the whole spectrum of everything. And then when I started talking that, well, there's trans truck drivers, there's drivers out here that are drag queens, there are drivers out, from every part of our community.
Mm-hmm.
It's out here.
Yeah.
And but for our own community not to know that, that when I really was like, we need to be building that gap, building that bridge of that gap, just so that even if we go with the truck or go as a group and we're just going to having shots and drinks and having fun on our nights off, for the weekend, and we're meeting somewhere. That's the reason we do those little things, because us going in our t-shirts and we're just having fun. It's a night of fun, we could go to St. Louis and hit up St. Louis sometime and go out to a bar, it's just a night of fun. But you would not believe how much visibility and education happens in that moment.
Yeah.
Because people don't think about it when the truck passes them.
Yeah.
Or when they're passing a truck on the interstate. A lot of people never give thought to a woman being in there. They never give thought to a trans woman or a trans man. They never give thought to it. You would think it's 2022 and that wouldn't be the case, but because we're in every profession, everyone, it's so everywhere. We are in like every profession, have been forever, but it's very rewarding and to be open and just talk about those subjects and do those type of things. So,
and that's why things like your truck or my book are important, because now, I mean, if you talk to anyone who's read my book, now every time they see a truck, they think, oh, I don't know who's in there. I know like that it could be anyone, and some of the conditions of the work, and that's super important to get people thinking and to open their minds. Yeah.
So if anybody wants to find out more about you, they can check out it's AnnBalay.com. Is that right?
Yep. You just have to spell the last name right.
Yeah. Balay. But you can check her out there, and if you really want, like, you can look her up on Amazon and book reviews and all that type of stuff. It's pretty cool. She's done some really neat things, and there's some really good reviews on there. My reviews on there, buried with the other ones, but so I mean, I just love the network and what we're doing, and I love smiling faces, people like you that have a good heart, just like me, and we're doing the right things out here, whether people agree with us. And we might get flustered and you may see me hot-tempered sometimes, but that's just my passion. And don't take it. It's my passion and my love, and I know what others are going through. Even on our page, our numbers, people's like, well, we only have like 2,000 people. I said, yeah, but look at the analytics. This week we had 27,000 visitors because those people aren't comfortable yet to follow, because if they do that, then other friends and people on their page, and that's very common, and I get it, but I pay attention to the overall, the analytics, and I watch all those views and how many clicks and all that type of stuff, and what they're doing, and how many people's liking it, and how many people actually that likes our stuff, but then they're not on the page, and you run into that. So you run into that, but that means that person has to, and I just like it. I like it because that person has to work extra. They have to type it in every time to come there and see the page. And that means that, we're doing the right thing. We're on the right path.
Yeah.
And it's about, bringing drivers together and people together, and just people in general, being a good person and bringing people together, not with an ulterior motive, but just being ourselves and letting everybody share their individuality with everybody else. And I just think that's so important.
Community is everything. Right? Like trucking can be so isolating because you're in a truck by yourself. So to know that someone on Facebook or someone somewhere is like you and cares, or shares something with you and cares, or has heard your story, it makes the job so much better.
Well, I thank you for being on the show. Do you have anything else to add before we go? Is anything to say, or you want to say to anybody out there?
Thank you for doing this, Bobby. It's important and wonderful.
Yep, and we're definitely going to do some more stuff together. I'm serious. I probably will. I've never been to St. Louis to go out. I drive through it all the time, and I'm like, I really want to go over there and look at this and look at that because it has this cute little area right by the interstate that has the string of lights and everything right by the arch.
Okay.
All those little bistros or whatever it is over there, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I really want to go there sometime.
We've got some good gay bars, Bobby. You'd love it.
Yeah, I would. So I definitely need to come up there and we need to plan something, even if it's just an overnight weekend type thing, just to go
Mm-hmm.
out and have some fun. Or just come there and give belly rubs to the dog. But
And I'll be at Matt's again, so we'll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna be at Matt's, but I don't know exactly how we're gonna do everything this year for sure. I'm trying to get the truck in the show and they're not as happy about that.
Hmm.
So I'm just pushing for it. We'll see what happens. I'm
Okay.
trying, but they didn't let me have it in the show last year because they didn't feel it was relevant. And I know I fought this. I have been fighting it, but I'm trying. I know it took a couple of years for certain people to get certain things done. So I know that I'm going to try every year until they say yes because I want the truck. I want the truck to be visible to where people. I wasn't even allowed to technically have the truck on the parking lot. They wanted me to stay at the other parking lot. So what I did was I paid for parking for the event center, and then even after I paid for parking for the event center, they moved the truck. A lot of people don't know that happened, but they moved me clear out, even though I paid for parking. I paid for, and just because they didn't want it to be seen. So I literally just moved it out by the main road where the exit was,
so
that everyone could see it when they're leaving. There's ways around this. So I'm trying to get it back in the show this year. We're trying to get it rewrapped. I would like to add your book to the side of the truck as well. A new wrap, but we'll talk about it and I'll show you the design and see what you think about that. But that's also why I asked if there was going to be another book and stuff. So everybody, she's an amazing person. Just follow up, check her out. She's fun. She's a great mother, and she's had a lot of obstacles in life, like all of us do. But her heart's in the right place about being an activist, and she doesn't always make things about her. It's not about making money. It's not about we all got to live. I get that, but that's not the reason she writes her books. It's not that she writes with passion, and that's the difference. When you write with passion and you write with, and I even say curiosity a little bit, because when she writes, she gets involved in someone's story, just listening and hearing everything, and that makes a difference. I love writers, and I love when people do that. So, yeah. So just check her out and go check out the webpage and go check her out on Facebook, say hi. And if you see her, we're so proud of everything she's doing. And if she can put queer voice out there towards Washington to hear for the trans community, the gay community, and everything, this is a huge step. And a lot of people may not realize it, but it is. It's a huge step. And it's something that we need. And I just hope that it stays this way, and that you can get things done, and that they listen to you, and that's the important. It's important, but she's definitely going to be heard. I know she's not going to step down and and give up, so that's a good thing. But thank you again so much, and we will get together soon. And you have a good day.
You too, Bobby. Come to town soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.